Hello, this is Keith Lamont. I'm working on AI War 2. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. So, one thing that we dealt with in an earlier video was the balance of AoE shots, especially against shields. And did I actually post that video, or did that wind up not getting cut? Anyway, one of the recent changes is that we made it so that AoE weapons could only hit a finite number of targets. At least flak and lightning AoE weapons could only hit a specific number of targets. Other AoE weapons are limited in other ways, generally speaking. So, but one thing that I made a note of needing to do is that the DPS formula for balancing an AoE weapon should take into account the number of targets it's going to hit, or going to hit in a saturation case where it has enough targets that it hit as many as it can. So this is the name of the XML field that I'm still getting used to this one. So find in file, Control Shift A. Okay. So and so lightning generally hits 10. And flak generally hits like 3 or 4. And it's like this is a minefield thing. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Actually, the minefield is an interesting point because I don't necessarily want it to be balanced the same way. But it's already not, because it's a one-shot deal. The actual amount of damage things take that's probably going to need to be revised a lot as we move forward. But one of the general ideas here is that we're not actually tweaking balance numbers, or like damage numbers, damage per shot numbers, whatever, in the XML. There's a number of things that are defined. Like if we go over and look at the basic entity, okay, here's the fighter. So we see that, like the fighter does not define its number of hit points, its number of hull points, if you want to put it that way. It defines, strength multiplier 1. This just means that it's a normal ship type. It's not abnormally strong or abnormally weak. It's got 20 ships per squad. And down here you can see granularity is normal. Basically what that means is, I think what it comes down to is 10 squads per cap right now. You can actually check that over here, or you can follow the rabbit a little bit and see. Normal is a cap multiplier of 1, which doesn't tell you much; it just tells you it's normal. It so happens that the cap, if you go over to external constants. So base strength for cap. This is not the best naming, but basically what that means is that there are generally 200 individual ships. Not really actually. So what it means is that a cap of ships has a strength of 200, and so that if you define a type that has the normal strength multiplier, so it's just got the 200, not more than that. And you define it so that each individual ship only has one strength, then there'll be 200 ships in that cap. That may not be the best way to explain this, but in the end, it doesn't actually matter a whole lot. You see how it works. So is there any other? We'll come back to this file. So the fighter has normal granularity. It has 20 ships per squad, so 10 squads per. Because of the normal granularity and the 200 strength, and then 20 ships per squad, that means 10 squads. There's also things like mark level and evasion and tank and durability. So mark level is a sort of multiplier to both the stats and the costs, and of course unlocking different marks requires different techs. That's the main cost, is the knowledge, the science cost. So for instance, evasion gives it resistance to weapons that are not anti-evasion at the cost of a certain amount of its DPS. Like if we look over here, so evasion, well actually, as the, is that right? Oh yeah, it is. So what it is that evasion doesn't actually change your DPS at all, but structure, which is sort of the absence of any of these other three, it actually gives you a DPS buff. Basically, if you have no good defense against anything, your defenses aren't especially good against anything, then you actually get to do more damage. If you have evasion, you get the normal amount of damage. If you have armor, it reduces your damage a little bit. If you have shields, it reduces your damage even more than that. And debuff multiplier is another thing. I'm not going to go into everything that we see, otherwise I'll never get done with this. Durability is where, basically, by picking mild tank, the fighter is basically giving up a portion of its damage output in return for more HP, for more hull points. You can see normal is just HP multiplier 1, DPS multiplier 1. Mild tank, you get 20% more HP in exchange for 10% less damage output. And it can go in other directions too. And I've got a special thing here for shield generators that don't have weapons, really. So, fuel cost. In this case, doesn't do anything, but the idea is you can have something that burns more fuel and does more damage, or vice versa. Power cost free, that's just because it's a mobile ship, and it's a ship that can go between planets. If it goes between planets, it uses fuel. If it doesn't go between planets, it uses power, generally. Metal cost is kind of like fuel cost. In this case, the fighter is actually less expensive than it otherwise would be, but does a little bit less damage. Granularity, we've looked at that before, and basically, for fleet ships, the more individual ships you have, the more damage you do. And that's just to account for the fact that it's easier to whittle away your damage capability by killing your individual ships. Whereas the lower cap you go, the less damage you do, but your damage output actually tends to probably still go up, honestly, over time, but because you're having fewer losses. But all of these are tweakable, of course. And I got different granularities for starships. I mean, some of these things I've had to make special definitions for. But they can be balanced if they're off. It's not like you have to go through and change everything's numbers. Alright, so, and then there's speed. So basically it goes normal speed and it doesn't lose or gain any damage for that. When we look at the gun itself, the spider gun thing, which is defined separately because there's nothing that says that a fighter has only one gun. You can give the fighter other weapons. Not a whole lot here. It just says that the rate of fire is normal and the shots per salvo is 1. So rate of fire just says if you have normal, then it's just no multiplier really. If you have a low rate of fire, you'll fire more slowly, and you'll do actually a little bit less damage in either direction. Actually, going higher or lower in rate of fire actually decreases your damage. This may seem unintuitive, but actually either direction, either extreme is advantageous for different reasons. Okay, where did I stick the fleet ships? Oh yeah, I was looking at systems. And then there's weapon type. So this is an armor-piercing shell. There's lots of things that are armor-piercing shell. So here's weapon type. Here's armor-piercing shell. So it counters armor. And there's a definition for this in another XML file. You can go look at it if you like. Range short. This is very important. Range makes a big difference in damage in this game. So short is actually the normal. One of the ideas is that if you have a major fleet engagement with a bunch of sort of evenly distributed ships, lots of short range, lots of medium range, lots of long range, that battles are going to go a lot faster if you can actually close with the enemy, because your short range ships are going to do a lot more damage than your long range ships. Similarly, if you have a very long range heavy fleet, you're going to want to keep the range open, because if the enemy has anything like comparable strength to you, and they have a balanced range mix or heavy on short range, and they get close to you, they're going to be doing a lot more damage than you are. So it goes all the way from just normal damage for short range to 60% damage at medium range, which is twice short range, to 40% damage at long range, which is 3x. And then snipers only do 20% normal damage. They're still really powerful, just because they can hit you from anywhere. And then I've actually got a melee range for things like particular cutlasses, where they get 30% bonus damage just because they have to get right up in your face. An interesting thing to note here is they are actually still ranged weapons. They're just really short. And here's a special definition for tractor range, because I wanted tractors, normal range tractors, to be just a little bit shorter range than the guns, so that fighters that got tractored wouldn't be completely unable to shoot at the thing trackering. Alright, so there's the range, there's shot speed, which doesn't really impact a lot, I don't think. Does it? There's actually a slight difference in damage, yeah. And instant shots do actually take a 20% hit to damage, and that's kind of... and that's kind of reasonable. I mean, that's... because something that hits instantaneously, that is a significant benefit. Alright, so weapon types. Shot type, this is just sort of this is the visual. And then this is the target sorter DLL. You can actually define different target sorting algorithms for each weapon type if you want to. That's used for things like the engine disrupting shell that a spider uses. It uses the engine wrecker sorter. But usually the standard is fine. But by all means, if you wanna do a different sorter, go ahead. I won't show that to you right now because limited time. If you want me to show it to you, let me know. So, all right. All that to say, we're not really tweaking damage numbers directly. We want the formula to take care of it for us. Now, it's obviously not going to do a perfect job. We're going to have to tweak things. We're going to have to change this to make it work for release. But I don't think that the solution is going to be going all the way back to Classic's approach of just changing numbers for every individual ship type. So we'll see how that goes. So what we're trying to do here is plug this number into that formula. So we're going to come over here to core and find where that's plugging into. Okay, this field right here. Okay, now we're going to go find the DPS calculation. So, and this doesn't have a lot to do with it, but this gets us over to, here's our cap DPS calculation of Doom. So we're actually computing the DPS on a cap basis. Basically, like for fighter, how much damage per second does a whole cap, does 200 Mark 1 fighters do? And then we'll figure out how much an individual fighter does and how much an individual fighter does per shot as opposed to per second. But all the basic balance calculations here are done per second for the whole cap. And so we have the strength per cap. That's computed for that ship type. It's going to be 200 for most things because that's what the constant says. And we are computing an absolute value here, so it actually uses the HP scale divided by the number of seconds per fight in the balance file. And the balance file is based on the idea this is how long a fight should take between a hypothetical even match, where nobody has any particular advantages. So lots of things here about the ship can change the DPS up or down. Death effects is for things like reclamation, zombification. Right now it's just zombification. Reclamation isn't in yet. Okay, and then here's where the system stuff, like the rate of fire, if it's a cloaker. Some of this stuff's a little weird. So, let's go back a second. Okay, this is defined on the system itself, this number of targets hit per shot. It's not defined on the weapon type. It could have been, that would have been fine, but it's not. So, if sub-entry system data if this is greater than 1, we'll want to do some kind of multiplication. So AOE multiplier equals sub-entry. Yeah, I'm just going to do 1 divided by sub-entry. So theoretical targets hit average. Sub-entry system balance divided by 2. I'm making a guess here. So this will, I was just checking to make sure this number is never going to be 0. It's not going to be. This will be at least a 2, and 2 divided by 2 is, yeah. That said, just in case something changes in this formula later, and I don't, even if it's 1, I don't really care. I want it to, no, let's do 0. So, that's the AoE multiplier. So the more targets you can hit, the lower this multiplier is going to be, and we're just going to multiply the cap DPS by that. So if you can hit 10 targets, it's going to divide your DPS by 5. And so if you're in a situation where you're hitting 10 targets, you're still doing twice the DPS of something that's a single target weapon with all the same stats, more or less, as you have. And maybe that's not the right ratio. Maybe I need to take this little 2 here and put that in external constants, or something like that. You know, we can figure that out. But this is making some effort to respect the fact that there's a difference between an AoE weapon and a single weapon. Excuse me. I'm taking a little while to build there. Okay. So, now that's built. That's done, basically. I don't have to do anything else. That'll affect all the AoE weapons in the game, just that way. So, I could test that, but I'm pretty sure that's going to work just fine. So I'm going to move on to the other thing I'm going to do for this video, which is to implement BadgerBadger's Nanocaust special faction. Now, this may or may not wind up making its way into the final game. But I think that there's a good shot it will, because it sounds really awesome. And actually, what may happen is that I wind up re-implementing the Dyson sphere to do either what this does now or something similar. The Nanocaust kind of spawns additional headquarters units, and I don't really want to have the Dyson spawning more Dysons. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But maybe the Dyson will spawn one of our devious device models, which is sort of a generic visual model we have for does things you don't like. I like this idea. Basically, he wrote this thing that there's a nanobot constructor somewhere in the galaxy when you start the game, if you enable the faction. If you enable the faction. And it just produces ships over time. Oh, apparently it actually will upgrade itself to a more powerful form. That's interesting, over time. But then it will send those ships every now and then to go attack something adjacent to take over. Or at least destroy things. I don't know. And then every now and then it'll actually send like a bunch of ships over to some nearby planet to try to take it over and build a new constructor and generally make itself more dangerous. Because that's what nanobots do, right? That's what all these science shows have told us. So, it's a gradually it could like take over the galaxy, which would be pretty funny. And he talked about a lot of other fun things it can do, like special behaviors, like specific targets it picks to go kill, that kind of thing. I think it's cool. So let's download this tarball. Here's the code that Badger defined. Thank you, by the way, Badger, for doing all this. This is awesome. Here's the code for the special faction that he had defined. It's about 750 lines of code. I imagine that took a while. But I'm guessing it was fun to write. So we'll come over here, we'll create the Nanocaust file. So kind of a manager class here. Yeah, I see. So you're defining this here, these constants. Yeah, I guess it would be good to have some good way for modders to. Well, you can add that in external constants if you want to in your own external constants file. But reading from it is yeah, I see the problem. Yeah, so I'm gonna make a note for later. This isn't gonna be for the next video or whatever, but add way for modders to define additional external constants that they can actually read from their code. Alright. Because you can add the XML, but you can't make my stuff read from it properly. You could add other things, but let's stick with this. So you got things like this is how much nanobots, how much strength of nanobots have to be on a planet, I'm guessing, to capture it. This is how low the AI strength has to be on that planet before you can capture it. This is how low human strength has to be. And so it's innocent saying that the nanobots have to stick to that planet. They can't leave unless the enemy strength is below that. And it looks like, is he saying that will that it won't send out a raid that leaves the source planet lower than this? Or that it won't send out a raid smaller than that? The comment in the name, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, I don't have to understand all this exactly right now. But, so then, this is how long, I assume in seconds, that it takes for the Nano constructor to upgrade to Mark II and then to Mark III. Then this is the base time between frenzies, that would be 3 minutes, I assume. So yeah, base seconds. Okay, they've got a modifier he'll use later, I guess. And then, okay, so you've got various lists here. Interesting. Yeah, just static, or no, not static. It's on this manager object. Yeah, so there's the declarations of a lot of stuff. So we don't need to go over all the code here. I'm just giving it a general. That's interesting. So that would be a default internal. I bet this is only run once. That's a very comforting comment, right? Yeah, you're correct. It's only run once. I don't know. When you're setting constants there, you could just set that here. And I would advise that you just set it here. Also, well, normally I would make that private. If it somehow is referenced somewhere else, then I guess I'll make it something other than private. But I tend to not leave fields without any access modifier, because it defaults to internal, which is usually not what you want. Oh, yes. Oh, okay, so probably what's happening there, there's this comment here. It says that this function was barely getting called before the game started, and it was causing crashes. I'm guessing it was being called in the lobby, because the game actually exists in the lobby when you're sitting there changing your map settings. It's actually calling the sim in a lot of, almost all of the sim except the part where it moves forward. When you start the game in the lobby, it just unpauses. Alright, so... yeah, this is the logic which allows the nanobots to destroy the warp gate and controller. You don't actually have to do a type name match there. I would suggest target, type data, tags. We'll actually roll up. Yeah, like that would suffice for this. I don't know the warp gate. Yeah, that would theoretically work, but let's do something else. So, and the reason I'm looking through here is that type name checks, they're not too bad. I mean, the names of these things can't change without breaking saves. So, once you've got it in there, it's probably not going to change. But that doesn't tell you that there won't ever be other units that you'll want to use. So yeah, actually special entity type is what we want here. For the controller, and then what's the warp gate? Yeah, it doesn't have a special entity type, but it does have a tag. Okay, and then we don't actually use I thought we had a better thing than contains for, because it's going to do a whole lot of string comparison for that. There should be a better way of doing that. Yeah, but I think this is what we're doing right now. So, let's go to arc and string, wherever that is. There we go. Yeah, basically, normal string methods are not so great for performance. They're great for correctness, which, correctness trumps performance. So, but in order to be correct, it just checks so many different things to see if two strings are functionally the same or whatever, and that's just not what we want here. We just want a character comparison. So, So I'm just going to write a little wrapper function here, because this is our library that does a lot of the common string operations, but it's doing them much more simply. And much more compatible with high performance. And so I'm just writing a wrapper function that uses our special equals comparison. but applies it to a list. And I mean, this thing may not get called that much that this really matters, but this is something that could checked by every nanobot that's on a planet that's got one of these things that normally it doesn't kill. Yeah, like is this a controller? Then I need to check this logic. So every nanobot in the whole game, every frame, could be checking this. So let's try to be efficient. So yeah, basically if it's a special type controller or it's a warp gate tag, if it's been tagged as a warp gate, then so yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand this loop. Why are we doing this? Okay, how about this? It looks like we're looping over our planets and seeing if we are on that planet. And I mean, this isn't an awful way to do it. But I don't understand why it needs to be this complicated. So if the planets does not contain the planet was yeah, and you're doing this planet look at multiple times. IntelliSense, there's something weird there. Okay, so basically, get the planet if the and then if our list of center planets doesn't contain that, then ignore it. We're not gonna kill things on planets we don't control. Then you can say if the target is a controller or the target is a warp gate, then we'll return true. Otherwise, we'll return false. Okay. So yeah, this looks like this was copied largely from the Dyson code, which is a good idea. And so if it's a center, then it just ignores it. If it's a ship, it's easy. Yeah. This is just ordinary routing, I think. Yeah, basically, if we're still going, if we're still going somewhere, then we're not going to do anything. If we're in a fight, we're going to let it stay in the fight. Otherwise, we're unassigned threat. Okay, so active planets. Okay, I think the idea is that if the nanobot is not on an active planet, according to the nanobot manager, then it just ignores that ship. It's not going to give orders to some nanobot ship that got stranded somewhere. By design, I'm guessing. It's acting like it doesn't have universal communication with all its nanobots. So yeah, it reserves a certain amount of strength, like ordinary threat behavior does, and it doesn't. It leaves enough ships behind. So yeah, it does look like it's leaving 4,000. That 4,000 strength behind. And then it picks a random neighbor. This is just for the linked neighbors, directly adjacent planets. And if there's none, then it's done. Well, actually, it does a bug report. Okay. If people start giving me bug reports for this, then we'll send it over to Badger, huh? And yeah, it calls the raid planet from list function, which I guess you copied over from the Dyson or whatever. Alright, so now the frenzying. Okay. Oh, I see. The frenzy target is picked. So it is sending all the ships from all the different planets that are available for threat behavior to the frenzy target, which is picked centrally. Okay, and so yeah, it's you're kind of looking at how much strength you have. Oh, here's something you don't want. This. You don't want that. How is it even doing this? Oh, yeah, that's right, because the comparison is, I was thinking, like, this is a double. How is it comparing it to an int? But, of course, it doesn't care. It does the conversion just fine. So, yeah, don't use doubles. Don't use floats in SimCode. This is SimCode. This will cause desynchronization in Multiplier, which is a crash level bug in Multiplier. Now, it may or may not actually cause it. It may only cause it very rarely. That's even worse. If it happens all the time, it's easily fixed. If it happens only occasionally, then we can be hunting it down for months. So, yeah, 1.5, no. You use fint from parts 1, 500. So what that says is this is 1.500. The second parameter there is always 3 digits long, unless you want something less than 10. Like if you did this, that would be like this. So we just usually just put always put three digits in. And what an fint is a fixed integer. It's a fixed integer. Well, it's actually not an integer. The thing is, it uses a fixed point integer to represent a number with a part before and after the decimal point. And we have to do this because floating point operations are not consistent across machines of different architectures. And so if you got two people playing Multiplier with one having one architecture and the other having another, then you can actually get in situations where where the way that this was written a moment ago would not give the same result on both machines. And then the simulations would diverge and everything would blow up, if we're lucky. If we're unlucky, it doesn't notice. And then things happen later. Yeah, and then here's the SimStep logic. Yeah, you made a note here that you don't need to run this more than once a second. We could run it less. Yes, this is so you can do it once a second. If you want to run it less than once a second, then and second, say that. That will make it run every 20 seconds. Interesting. You want to seed some extra units at the very beginning of the game. And notice you got another debug line here. This isn't conditional, so this is going to show up every time somebody runs the game with these guys. Same thing here. Yeah, this is going to put a lot of stuff in the debug log. I see. And this is here it's conditional, but here it's not. It's only once at the beginning of the game. That's okay. But so aberration, abomination. That's pretty funny. You can use tags, by the way. You don't have to do by name search, but whatever you want for your own prototyping is fine. So what I'm looking for. Yeah, so you should be able to seed what I'm getting at is I don't see why you're having to seed that stuff when... Yeah, I see here in seed starting entities, you can do that extra seeding of these aberrations and abominations there. You don't need to do it in the first second of the game. Where did I put that? I mean, I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just saying. Oh, yeah, and yeah, you were doing the second check thing already. Well, anyway, I'll take this back out since you obviously know about the technique. I'm just saying, if you want it to run less often, you can have it run less often. And it's doing some kind of updated planet list logic we'll see in a moment. If we are not frenzying, it checks to see if we've passed the time for the next frenzy. And then it picks a frenzy target just by random. Okay, yeah, that's one way to do it. Okay, so it tries to add a constructor, and then it tries to upgrade constructors. Okay, so add constructor if possible. If you're allowed to capture, then put the constructor there. Yeah, so like here in this comment, I wouldn't call that a controller, it's a constructor. Controller has a very specific meaning. It's that unit that's on every planet and can never be removed, because it's basically the flag. Yeah, who controls this? But yeah, so you're just creating a new side, the new center there. So this is an inner loop thing. This is the outer that's actually being called there. Yeah, so if you've already got one there, you don't place it again. You can check more directly for whether or not you got a constructor on that planet. You can get by tag or whatever. Although, yeah, that may not be as good in performance. So, okay, so this is actually kind of the same code here. It's just only for one. This one's only for one. This one is for multiple. So you're not actually even using this one. Well, yeah. And if I had bothered to read your comment, I would say that you're currently not using it. Okay. So, loudly capture, currently unused. Well, the thing, your comment says it's currently unused, but it's actually used. Oh, no. Never mind, you were right. Alright. It's only used by the thing that's unused. So, update planet lists. Yeah, see you're allocating every time, is that right? You could just do clear, right? Clear would be better. Yeah, there's no reason you can't go ahead and just initialize these as soon as you're just right here in the declaration. It's nice to not have to worry about whether a list can be null. I mean, if there's some reason why you want to lazily initialize that memory, that's fine, but almost all the time that I'm actually using these, I'm just initializing them, and I like to use read only because I don't want to ever reinitialize that list. I just want to clear it if I'm done with it. We don't really want to be encouraging the of course then you get into things like this. Oh boy. This isn't the best way to do things. I mean, you can do this. You're calling new every time, which doesn't necessarily have to be very often. But that's gonna put garbage on the heap once it's done using that list, or once it's replaced the previous list, and then the one that's been replaced becomes garbage. The garbage collector has to deal with it. It's probably not a big deal here, but our practice is to avoid using new in the midst of code that runs potentially a lot. I won't say I don't do it, but this is what we aim for. So, just check. Yeah, okay, we're using this twice. Not sure exactly why, but so list planet list to fill. So rather than creating a new list every time, we're going to fill a list there first. That will avoid just increasing amounts of garbage in the garbage collector. Oh, I don't know why I did that. Okay, there we go. So fill. Now, what this is going to wind up being a new because it's just being declared there. There would be a good idea to stop that too, but one thing at a time. Okay. See, I'm not actually even using this list. That's what it looks like. Is that right? Let me make sure this actually builds first before drawing that conclusion. And yeah, here we're just replacing those news with clears. And of course, if we're really concerned about performance, usually what we wind up doing is not using lists at all. because it's correct, it's general purpose, and it's almost all. I mean, we use list a lot. We do use list a lot. But sometimes we find that we just can't get the performance we need. And so then we do really strange things. Yeah, that one wasn't used at all, I guess. I mean, there are no side effects. That I think are being skipped. Okay. Alright, here's where we were. So, and yeah, there are lots of other news in the code that we've been looking at, and I'm not going to go and try to get them all. I just noticed here, it's like, you don't have to reallocate them every time. Just clear up. So, I get the feeling that I dropped something from the code. What happened? Okay, no, it's assuming this is already updated. Okay. I just kept this copy here of the code before I changed anything. So yeah, you're just getting a list of possible target planets that are nearby, that are adjacent to infected planets. Update the constructor. Okay, yeah, entity type name contains. Just use a tag. Just use a tag. That's what tags are for. I'll leave it alone for now. There are a lot of ways that things can be done differently. Name. This isn't even an internal name. This is actually like the description name. This is the name that shows up visually. Yeah, don't use that. I mean, that could be changed for localization or whatever, for different languages. But the code is not too perfect right now. That's fine. So yeah, it's an upgrade. It'll kill the old one and then replace it with a new one. Yeah, that works. And then that's the thing we looked at earlier, getting the planets that already have them. And then I see you're just getting, you're allocating every time, but I don't have time to fix all of that, and it should work just fine. We'll see if your faction works at all after all the changes I've made. That's one thing, but yeah. So then this is the zombie thing it uses. Okay, so yeah. Don't use name. Don't use name. Use internal name if you really want to use the literal string. Like that's what you want to use, but I'm not going to touch it for now. Okay. Yeah, so I'm guessing that the zombies are being created. Yeah, this is just the zombies that are being created, and so they don't do much. That's fine. And then Yeah, there are some more efficient ways probably, but well, you can just do list contains, and it should do just fine on a list of planets. I tend not to do contains on a list if it's a value type that's being stored, like an int, because then it has to box the int, and which causes heap allocation. Although we have some convenience methods for doing list contains on an int that doesn't do that. But there's really no reason you couldn't just use list.contains element here, and it would be fine. Yeah, I see. You feel really dumb for writing this function. Yes, there is an easy way of doing this. Where do you use this? Yeah, you could rewrite this as if contains neighbor. Now, it doesn't check to see if the list is null, but I solved that earlier by just making sure the list is never null. But I'll put it back to where it was, it's fine for now. But yeah, since you were asking, there are easier ways. Now, is there some inefficiency in list.contains even for a class type like that? Probably. I haven't looked at the code, but I never had it be a problem. Unlike, list int contains. Alright, and then here's the raid planet thing. I think you just probably copied this from the Dyson logic. It kind of does a path find to see how, what's the best way to get to that planet. But you're doing, I think, mostly a lot of adjacent attacks, so there wouldn't be a lot of pathfinding, except for the frenzy, where you're just randomly picking something, I guess. And, yeah, there'd be some pathfinding here. Nanocaustation. Okay. Anyway, looks good. I'm sure I missed things, but what warnings are we getting? Yeah, looks like you got some unused variables. It's best to comment those out if you're not using them, but let's move on. So here's yeah, the death effect, the build menu. Yeah, these are just all the pieces of XML data necessary to wire this up. Lots of, entity definitions, system definitions. There's the actual faction definition. It references the class name, the class we were just looking at. Here's the entity definitions for the actual centers, and then it's like a tachyon emitter on one of them. It's pretty funny. Okay. Yeah, just the things that it generates. The text. I don't think you really need text for a faction. I mean, a faction doesn't have text. I think, actually, in theory, since it has a world side, that it does have a list of text, but only players care about that. Only players should care about that. Then here's shot types. Okay, I see, because you're using the death effect. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Alright. Okay, so let's go in here to game data, configuration. So build menu. Death effect. Entity system. Factions. Now, if I was applying this as a mod, there's a different way of doing that. This works for mods, but there's a more self-contained way of doing it there. Factions. Special faction. Game entity. Tech. Weapon type. Okay, so this should work in theory. Assuming I didn't mess it up in the course of my changes. If I did mess it up, then I could just replace it with the clean file from Badger. But yeah, let's test this, see if it runs, doesn't completely die, and then I should be wrapping this up because we're nearing like an hour and 10 minutes now. Okay, what the Nanocaust on for some definition of want. Oh, okay. Yeah, something I didn't like there. So, fill, construct, you hit a null in here. Regrettably, we do not get line numbers in external code because the assembly is loaded at runtime. So I'm guessing it's the list that's null somehow. No, the list can't be null. Alright. Could the side be null? No, this side can't be null here. Entity passed out. No. Okay, not all entities have long-range planning data. That's an important thing. That can be null. So the idea is just ignore it. Now, only reference that, by the way, if you're actually in long-range planning. Are you? No, this is in per sim step logic. Okay, this is important. Yeah, the long-range planning data is for long-range planning. Don't use it in the ordinary sim step logic. And I know I didn't make the distinction very clear. So that is something that does need to be made clear. But so here we don't want to use long-range planning, current plan index. We just want to use any planet. Combat planet. Combat is just a reference to the space, the 2D grid or whatever you want to call it that it's on, as opposed to the planet, which has both an existence at that level and an existence at the galaxy map level. Okay, so I think that's probably what happened. Oh, and no, we don't need this anymore because we're not using it. We don't need to check. So, thankfully that was pretty quick to find. And yeah, I think that would have been a problem even without my changes. So, let's give it another try. Nope, not happy. What's no? I mean, there's lots of references, but the list can't be. The side certainly shouldn't be. And that can't be. It's got null. Goodness. Alright, well. Line numbers would really help here. Yeah, regrettably, I don't know how to make that happen. It took a long time to get line numbers in our core code. So if side equals null, debugging. If list equals null, B entities. This is not going to be null. If I can't find it, I'll check for that later. So if entity equals null, name really should not be null, but you know, it's possible, I guess. Okay, I mean, Yeah, these things, that it ought not be. These things ought not be. But, can't argue with an L exception. You just gotta find it. Okay, it says B. List to fill equals null. Okay, how? Oh, I think I know what happened. Alright, okay. I didn't think of this because it never would have occurred to me. That was a good idea. If you want it to be null, you don't have to set it in the constructor. Anything that can be null, that's defined as a class member like that, just starts as null, unless you tell it otherwise. I mean, I understand people prefer not to rely on the defaults, but in this case, it's a read-only field, which protects it from ever being overwritten by anything except in the constructor. So, honestly, I think a lot of this constructor stuff, I just move out here, like set your capture strength required to 500 here, not up there, but, and that's that's just a style thing. You can do it either way. Like uninfected planets. Like this was. Like this one was not actually being cleared, not actually being set to null anyway, I guess. Not the constructor. Alright. Yeah, so that was a combination of you doing something I didn't think people did. Or didn't think to think. Me being silly. Alright. It's not immediately crashing. That's always a positive. Alright, let's go find this thing. 0, 2, 1. Is that it? No, that's the regenerator golem. There's that sickly olive green on planet Cormac. So yes, the olive green. The deviant, the anomaly, the mutation. You could just use. Well, no, I guess for the death effect you had to use that. There are other ways we can handle that. So yeah, here's the nanobot. Here's the Nanocaust taking over its first planet. It's already killed the constructor, the controller now. It has increased AIP doing that, but as I mentioned before, that's just a problem that I need to solve some other way. I want factions to be able to carve out their own space. I'm not necessarily going to sit around for a while watching this, but so 0, 7, just come over here. So let them clear their planet. Okay, so it's actually already spread over here. it's gonna send something over here to... Yeah, it's sending a Mark V Guardian to attack something else. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it assassinated another Guardian. Yeah, that Guardian was more of a zombification thing. It wasn't actually... Now, we don't necessarily want it to have, like, thousands of squads just hanging around. That will then eventually lead to performance problems. We may want to sort of do what the Guardians do for AI ships, where it will actually store the guards internally. But I see that it's sending them off to Letterberg. And from there too, is this like a frenzy? Here they are. Yep. It certainly looks like the AI is now the least of our concerns. We have to worry about nanobots instead. Although these are mostly Mark I nanobots. Or entirely Mark I nanobots. And so they're having a hard time with this Mark IV planet. But not a very hard time. They're doing remarkably well considering they don't have an arc to repair them and shield them and all that. And I mean, this is pretty intense. That's a Mark IV planet. And that's actually a dire Guardian there. Not doing a whole lot. It should generate a... Oh, that would be fun. Wait, it just generated 100 kill, it looked like. That's what it's supposed to have done. But the, doesn't seem to have stuck around. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, I think I know what happened. Is it deployed and then immediately reabsorbed because there's no threat to it. Well, it should just deploy them and let them run off. But, okay, so it looks like the AI has survived that attack. But the nanobots did do quite a bit of damage. And they are rebuilding. Yeah, the AI just planted another shield generator. It's trying to recover its controller. It does actually check, do I have things that I need to cover with shields? It didn't do a very good job of covering it thoroughly. But, so it goes. Okay, so looks like the nanobots are preparing for another assault. So they can take out that Guardian. They're doing quite a bit of damage. Oh, no, I see. Most of that damage was from earlier. Yeah, those are pretty hard to kill. Mark IV Guardians. That's a lot of nanobots. Yeah, it's impressive seeing these Mark 1 things just taking a long time to kill something. But now they started to zombify the Guardians, which will really help them, hopefully, help them fight more effectively. A bunch of Mark 1 fleet ships zombifying a Mark 4 Guardian. I like that. That's why there are no immunities. Well, I wouldn't say no immunities. There are certain things where it would just be really weird for them to be zombified. But I don't think anything's currently immune. I don't know. Could the nanobots zombify your arc? I'm not sure I want an answer to that question. They just killed a Mark 5 Guardian. I suspect it was actually killed by one of these zombified plasma Guardians. Because it did not actually zombify the Dire Guardian. Okay, so they tripped the strength threshold and said, okay, now we can kill the controller. And they did. They have, and then they built a construction center. So, the nanobots have expanded. Before our very eyes. Doesn't that just make you want to move here, right? Do you think the nanobots would be great for property values? So why is it like kind of like trickling ships through to Hillis? That doesn't seem like a especially a good idea. But okay. There must be some kind of planet. Well, yeah, that's what's going on. Planetary cloaker. It has no idea. Alrighty, well, we gotta wrap this up. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the project. Thanks for your interest. I hope you enjoyed it. If you wanna, the next version, I mean, unless something comes up that makes me have to take it back out, the Nanocaust should be in the next version. Let me go ahead actually and before I let's go ahead and commit this. So AOE. So now vector there. Next, ships hit per shot and do their DPS balance calculation. And that's the not very exciting feature that I added. Badger's Nano special faction has been added to the game. And so somebody's just reading the notes. I want them to see that. Okay. Now make sure I actually include those files. Double check here. Okay. Alright, that's in. And go ahead and stop the recording. And again, thanks very much for watching and for supporting the project. Have a good day.